Hey, hello everyone. Hope you had a great weekend. Hope you had a great weekend. And again, it's Sunday night in the West, Europe, and Monday morning here in Asia. So we'll be taking a look at a few things, a few news items. We'll be taking, of course, a look at the gold and silver prices, and the main topic of the day is going to be Lebanon, and we'll be watching a few clips and really try to understand what's going on there and the similarities between what's going on there and how it could actually occur or happen or be things that could happen here in the West, in particular the US, even perhaps places in Europe. So we want to understand what's going on in Lebanon and how they are very similar, or the root causes of what happened there are very similar to what we are seeing now. So again, hope you stick around. This will be the main topic. So again, appreciate y'all being here. Atomic 47, Stacker, Peter Schultz, Carrie Ellen Wilder. How you doing? Um, yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while. So we will get on that bus. We're gonna get on a bus. So bring your brown bags, your lunches along with you, and we are going to take a look at a few clips as to what's going on with Lebanon. So I'll be with you shortly. Let me get a few more things prepped up. Let me know how the audio is, and I'll see you guys shortly. Hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Silver Bullion Television, SBTV. This is our live stream, and I'm your host, Patrick Vera. Glad you could all be here once again. It's been a while. We've been doing this bi weekly for the past, about the past month or so. So I'm wondering how that is for you guys. Is once every 2 weeks or so, twice a month, if that's working out for you, or just let us know your opinions. And it's been a while, so let me say hello to all of you that made it here. Jason Lynn, VK Travelog, Mass Report, Seymour Rivers. All right, thanks for the feedback. Paul, how you doing? Harold B, JR from Melbourne, Australia. JR, how are things in Australia right now? We've been seeing some things on the news, hearing a lot of what's going on there. You're on the ground, so if you don't mind, just let us know in the comments how things are there. Manuel De Jesus, how are you doing? Lillian Winston, how are you doing? Again, appreciate y'all being here. Mass Report. Let's see. Mass Report. Lebanon was on the hit list, seven countries that the U.S. was planning to invade back in 2001. Okay, okay. Arab Spring. This has anything to do with Arab Spring? I know that was a thing quite a while back as well. Perhaps, maybe not. But yeah, tough times in Lebanon for sure. And we are going to be taking a look at the similarities uh, with Lebanon and what's going on today and the root causes. And if these causes are the same things that we have going on today in the West. So just want to take a look at those similarities there. So again, DB built for tough. How you doing, Patrick Bateman? Greetings and salutations again. Tweety Bird, how you doing? Robert Ultrup. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll get started. If you are new here or if you haven't already done so, please do subscribe. Hit that bell to be notified on updates and give us a thumbs up. Thumbs up, hugely important, and we appreciate that. You can always find us on social media. Silverbullion.com.sg is our website. Yes, we do sell gold and silver. Yes, we do have a vault, not a third party vault. It is our vault. So when you want to know what's the status of your metals in the vault, you can call us direct and we will tell you. This isn't a third party vault. Okay, and we do specialize in systemic wealth protection. As always, a lot of you already know what's going on out there, and we are looking for options. A lot of us are looking for options, and we just may have those options you're looking for. So contact us, sales at silverbullion.com.sg. Let's see what we can do. Let's see what we can do. We're all in this boat together. Silver Bullion SG is our Facebook handle. Silver Bullion PLPL for private limited is where you can find us on Twitter. Silver Bullion SG, Instagram. Instagram. Join us on Instagram. I know everyone out there is young, right? So we want to see what's going on with Instagram. Audio versions, SBTV iTunes, SBTV Spotify, bit.ly, SBTV iTunes, and SBTV Spotify is where you can find audio versions and Crisis Tracker. Do join this group if you have that Telegram app, whether it's for your desktop or mobile phone. T.me/crisis tracker is what you can search for. You'll find us, and this is where we go ahead. And like I always say, we will sift through the news, the riffraff for you, find out news as it pertains to us, whether it's things with gold or silver, finance, or the economy. So I do hope you will join our crisis tracker group there. So again, hello everyone, Russ Roth 495. How you doing? Let's see. We felt so alone last Sunday. Yeah, I'm. It's a strange feeling for me too. So maybe we'll see what we can do, how we can do things moving forward. Pablo Pina, how you doing? Aloha, Bernard Lash. Okay, how you doing, Bernard? Bernard, first time I've seen you here. So again, if you are new, just type in new and where you're from, and we'll go ahead and we'll try and see if we can acknowledge you. So yes, absolutely, join our Crisis Tracker Telegram group. It is a good group. It is growing, and a lot of good info is starting to come out there. So again, hope to see you folks there. Let's see. Lieutenant Colonel, how you doing, sir? Better be prepared. It's going to be epic. Epic is a word. That is really a word that brings so much to the mind when you think of that word, epic. I know for you old guys like me, epic, sometimes you're thinking of a record with that record label. I know I do sometimes. So, all right, showing our age there. Upcoming guest, we got a good one coming up. He is, of course, Michael Pinto, president and founder of Pinto Portfolio Strategies. He brings more than 27 years of investment experience, along with being the portfolio creator and consultant and author of The Coming Bond Market Collapse. His firm, Pinto Portfolio Strategies, also actively helps and supports organizations such as Lunch Break, which helps to provide necessities for those facing challenging times. So again, do hit that bell, sign up, and so you'll be notified when that interview with Michael Pinto comes out. I think we'll talk about bonds and some other things. I mean, I think these things are, you know, they're in the back of people's minds, and we want to know how these things are going to act and react to things like tapering, what goes on with the markets and Fed speak and all of these things. So Michael Pinto is coming up. Our ebook giveaway, it's been a while, is going to be in light of yesterday, the backstory of the global economy. And it's pretty interesting here. The backstory of the global economy by Brady Rains. Now, the stories within are more than simply interesting antidotes, more than simply antidotes. They also offer, excuse me, valuable insight into how current events can shape the future of unanticipated ways. Oh, how true this is. In light of yesterday is a must read for anyone wishing to gain a deeper understanding of today's global economic landscape and provides insight into the question, what can be done today in light of yesterday to prepare for tomorrow? To prepare for tomorrow. We got to know where we have been in order to know where we are going. So it's a pretty good book. You want to win this book, The House Rules? Download the Kindle app from your phone or tablet's app store. Again, this is the ebook. Be one of the first five to correctly answer in this live stream before the timer runs out. You're going to have about a minute and 30 seconds. U.S. winners, you'll be given a link to download the ebook. Non-U.S. winners, you're going to have to ask Amazon to exchange the ebook for other things like perhaps a gift card. The reason being, Kindle does not gift ebooks outside of the U.S. And provide us your email during this live stream. And what will happen is my colleague Vincent, he is here standing by. He will mute your comments so that way no one else will see it except for us. And then you can go ahead and just provide your email only. And that way we'll be able to get you the book perhaps shortly after this live stream. Okay, so the question to win this ebook is going to come from David, excuse me, David H. Smith's interview. So I hope he had a chance to watch it. He gave a lot of good info, and the question is gonna come from there. And I'll go ahead and put this question out front. You have about a minute and 30. All right, here you go. Question is, according to David H. Smith, people have bought blank into weakness and blank in the price rise? It's one word. The answer is going to be one word used twice. Okay, one word used twice. According to David H. Smith, people have bought blank into weakness and blank into the price rise. Okay, the answer is one word. Go ahead, give it your best shot. Okay, so let's see what you folks are thinking. Let's see if you had a chance to watch the video or the interview. Okay, let's see if comments are coming in. Go ahead and take a guess. You never know. Okay, so we see them coming in. Gold. Okay, any others? Hope. Silver. All right, watching these comments come in. Gold. You folks didn't watch that interview, did you? We're way off, guys. We're way off. We're way off. People have bought blank into weakness and blank in the price rise. Um, no. Oh boy. Okay. What do we need to change to get you guys to watch the interviews? Okay. No, it's not. It's not silver either. It's not gold. It's not silver. It's not Shiba Inu. It may as well have been. Seems like no one watched that interview. The answer is massively. People have bought massively into weakness and they have bought massively into the price rise. Well, all right, guys, what do we need to do? Get you guys to watch the interviews. Anyway, here's the answer just to show you that we're not making it up. Here's David H. Smith from our guest revisit. He's going to answer that question here.
2011 to 2015 was not an easy trip for me, for any of us. And then to see in 2016, see prices go through the roof for 6 months and give most of it back into 2018. That was harder for me than 2011 to 2015. But you know what? I look at it and I go, I'm still here. I'm still optimistic. I'm still accumulating metal. I'm still accumulating best of breed silver and gold producers. So it tells me that something is going on that's going to work out. And we do our best to encourage others to not give up, because you know there's something worse than going through what we're going through right now. And that is to go sit in the corner and give up and then see things happen exactly the way that you thought they were, but be impotent to participate because you've given up. Do not give up. Be cautious. Buy into weakness. And you know, now a lot of people are hesitant to buy right now. But on every time before this one, people have bought massively into weakness and they bought massively into price rise. And so I think that will take over again.
Okay, so that's the answer. Massively, I knew the answer. I watched the interview. So, all right, we're going to have to make some changes here. Get you folks to watch the interview. Yeah, maybe the edge is not there. Edge is not there. All right, we'll rethink some things and see what we can do. But do you agree? I mean, how many of you out there you have bought the dips? And then again, how many of you out there you see that dip, but you're waiting, thinking it may go lower? I'll wait and see if it goes lower, buy that continued dip, and then you end up chasing and you buy it as it starts to go up again. So, who are you? Are you the person that straight away you just start to buy that dip, or do you kind of wait, and then you end up chasing? I'm the second guy. I tend to wait, and then it starts reversing a bit, and then I'm thinking, okay, maybe it may go back down, and it doesn't, and I end up chasing and buying it at a higher price. So don't be like me. If you see that dip, just go ahead and get it. Curious to see what you guys do. All right, here we go. David H. Smith, another clip.
Silver, it's the only metal that's trading for less than its nominal high. In fact, it's halfway from its high of $50, which is hit on two different times, you know, 2011 and 1980. And I maintain, Patrick, that no one on the face of the earth today knows what the value of silver is, because it's been so badly manipulated for decades. I mean, it's not a conspiracy theory, it's a fact. And I don't know what it is, but I can tell you it's much, much higher than it is now. We all know the price. Right now, you can look and see the price today, but we don't know the value. And that value, in my view, is somewhere in 3 digits, and it's not going to take years to get there. We could be on that march starting this fall, and we could hit new all-time high sometime next year.
Okay, yeah, I'm watching those comments. But yeah, I agree with a lot of them. I guess even though I just said what I said, uh, trying to get that dip, it's kind of like a game. But the truth is, I'll just buy. And the dip is a game, but I'll just buy because in reality, I'm one of those that really don't care about the price. But it's more like a little game that you try to play. But Lieutenant Colonel Brumley, you got it right. I buy every month, don't care about the price. That's a good answer. Now, no one on the face of the earth today knows what the value of silver is. We could hit all-time highs next year. Do you agree? Do you think it's this year? Do you think it's next year? Or the price of silver? What is really the price of silver? I think he's got it right there. I don't think anyone truly knows the price of silver. Remember, spot price. Spot price is the paper trading price. It is not the true value of the physical metal. Okay, so keep that in mind. One more clip from David H. Smith.
I think we're looking at a market situation that both David Morgan and I experienced deeply in the 1970s. They came to be called stagflation. They had high inflation rates. Different sectors were doing well, but others not so well. And so you had kind of a soft economy where everybody wasn't doing well. Some were, but many weren't. And what I would say the difference this time, Patrick, is that the inflation is going to be much more robust and eventually out of control, I believe. And the economy is going to be more difficult to predict, accumulating things of real value that have been value for thousands of years, primarily gold, silver, real estate carefully chosen, things in the DeFi universe with the blockchain and Bitcoin and Ethereum and things like this. I think if people are become informed about that, take calculated risks, and blend these things in with their own profiles of ability to invest and take risks and whatnot, I think this is a path toward survival and flourishing during these times.
Okay, so inflation, he says, will be more robust and out of control than in the 70s and 80s. Do you agree with that? I think a lot of us, we may even remember those times. How about accumulating assets, gold, silver, real estate, Bitcoin, etc.? Do you agree with all of David's suggestions, or one or two, or a few of them? And I'll go into our other guest, Dan Collins, but I'll wait to see some of the comments here first. I just want to go through comments here. Manuel de Jesus, I agree with him. why more? Why more? Here we come. Shouldn't be laughing. That is a pretty serious thing. And again, why more? Here we come. That is another reason why you should be looking to get things that are stores of wealth. Not financial advice, professional or otherwise, but looking back at history and just offering my opinion on things as to what I would do. I would definitely be looking at ways to turn that paper fiat into something hard, real, physical, and liquid, and a store of value. Which is why I tell you all the time, I do look at things like silver and gold. I know you as well out there. That's why you're looking at silver and gold as well. Okay, and let me just take a look at a few comments. Excuse me here. Let's see. Andrew Pile, PA. I only buy the dips. Okay, all right. I wish I could do that. I wish I could do that. Let's see. Yeah, VK Travelog Store of Wealth is gold, investment is silver. That's a good point. That's a good point. Fair opinion there. Okay, and so what I'll do now is I'll move on to Dan Collins. Dan, he's a U.S. citizen. He's been living in China for quite a number of years, and so he has a good grasp of what goes on in China. And again, he is American, so he does see, the two sides of the coin, we should say. So here's a couple clips from Dan Collins.
Being over in Asia, you know the power of the Chinese economy. I mean, people in Thailand and Cambodia or wherever, their export market's going to be China now, and they're going to import a ton of stuff from China. Their largest trading partner is going to be China. Even people that have big rivalries with China, like Japan, their largest trading partner has become China. It's past the U.S. You look at a country like South Korea, they're now selling so much more into China than they are the United States. So a lot of these countries are going to say, "Hey, what's good for our business? We can't just get rid of China." And nobody can at this point. You're economically locked in.
Okay, he makes a really good point there. Everyone is becoming economically locked in with China, and like it or not, gang, this is a fact. This is a fact, whether we like it or not, acknowledge it or not. It's a fact. And the question, and I've asked this before, is if you are the world's biggest economy and the biggest trading partner of the majority of nations all over the world, would you want to use someone else's currency, a currency that could potentially be weaponized, often is or was weaponized, and it can halt transfer of payments, the systems all over the world? Would you be wanting to use someone else's currencies and systems at that point if you are the world's largest economy? So I'll be waiting to see some comments there. Want to run through some things here as well. Lieutenant Colonel, appreciate this. The key is to watch us. We will try our best. And Greg Hunter, that's a very high bar, very 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 high bar. When we first started, we were watching guys like Greg Hunter, and he is a guy out there that definitely he knows news, and so appreciate that. That's a great comment. But I just want to see what else you're saying out there. Um, Jason Lynn, your local dealer is out of 100-ounce bars. Um, yeah, it is it's not as tight as it used to be. I would say just hang on a bit. It's just probably ordering, or we know shipping right now is also delayed in a lot of places. So, hang in there. I'm not going to say it's a shortage or anything. It's just more of a probably a supply issue, supply strain. So, hang in there. Let's see. Yeah, Manuel de Jesus, exactly. That's what the U.S. did with the dollar. It's been weaponized time and time again. And again, if you're the largest economy, biggest trading partner with most of the countries in the world, would you want to be using someone else's currency? All right, another clip from Dan Collins.
In 2008, 2009 financial crisis, the world was shocked when we printed 700 billion. Everybody's shocked. Oh my God, 700 billion. Now we're at 11 trillion. This all goes exponential. The next printing will top 20 trillion. So we're coming to what I call a 2030 endpoint where you're not going to be able to value anything in US dollar. It's confetti at this point. People say, what's going to be the price of Bitcoin? What's going to be the price of gold? What's going to be the price of silver? How do you even value it in a fiat currency that's destroyed? By 2030, you won't be able to value it. We'll be on a whole different paradigm. That's where I see the world going, unfortunately.
All right, the 2030 endpoint. 2030 endpoint. Now, we won't be able to put a value on the US dollar. And that's interesting. I mean, everybody says, how much will gold be? How much will silver be? And that's relative to US dollars. But again, we may not be able to put a value on the US dollar. So it will be pointless to measure gold, oil, silver, Bitcoin. It will be pointless to think of what the dollar value will be. So let me ask you, what do you think gold and silver will be valued in? If not some type of a fiat currency, how will things be valued? Rarity, scarcity, units, credits? I mean, how are things going to be valued? I felt for a while, it's going to have to in some way be tied into commodity versus commodity type of a thing, because these are things that are real. I think people are going to want things that are real, but I'm not the guy in charge. I'm not the guy pulling the levers. So what do you guys think? Let's see. VK Travelog, dollar will be worthless. It's getting there. It is absolutely getting there, and you're gonna when we do get into Lebanon, you're gonna something interesting will come up regarding the dollar will be worthless. So okay, um, last living old cowboy. I am my own central bank. Good for you. Exactly. That's what you need to do. You need to be your own central bank. You need to have things that are of value outside of the current monetary system for sure. All right. Okay. So let me see here. We'll go down and we'll take a look at one more clip from Dan Collins.
Their concept of copyright is so weak that they honestly just don't care, and you just try to get as far as you can with them on it. It's led to a unique competitive advantage in our economy, especially in tech. What's happened is that, let's say you're a startup, you come out with a product, you launch, the next day someone's copied you. And there's really nothing you can do about it. So you can't just rest on your laurels. It's not like in the US where you can go get a patent on something and you got 19 years to develop it. No, you launch your product, it's got to be continuously improved, add new features, add new distribution, new customers, new technology, because someone's copying you every day. It's basically a gladiator's pit of business that you have to compete. And that's why so many of the Chinese companies are so competitive now.
Okay, this is the part of the interview I found pretty interesting. But not adhering to things such as intellectual property rights, copyright laws, things like that, is in part what allows or what promotes this ultra competitive advantage to keep moving forward at breakneck pace. Now, do you agree with this? Essentially, what's going on there is um, because intellectual property, copyright things, they're not really seen the same way they are seen in the West. In China, they are seen as this is for the greater good for everyone. So why wait 15, 20 years? So that's kind of how it's seen. And then you do see these advancements going on. And in the West, we feel that, hey, this is, you know, my idea. I should get paid for it. And rightfully so as well. So you have two sides of the coin, which, in a sense, they're both right, and so that's where the interview got a bit interesting for me. Now, do you think intellectual property rights and their laws are important? Now, do they hold back timely, quick, innovative things? And do they hold back things like innovation, adaptiveness? Now, if there were no IP laws in your country, would they invent? Or would they find it kind of useless to invent anything since there is nothing to protect their work and their time, no compensation for it. So just want to see what you folks say out there. Harold B. Patents should be 1 year. Hey, maybe that's a good point. I know they are awfully long, so that's a good point there. Um, okay, I see folks got some good comments going on there. All right, so I'll move on to let's see. Hang on, let me get this up there. Okay, so I will move on now to Gerald Celente. I want to take a look at a few things that he had in his most recent Trends Journal, and then we'll move over. We'll quickly try and move forward to our main topic of Lebanon. So here's some things from Gerald Celente's latest Trends Journal: Gold and silver, Ford, entrepreneurs, Yellenpreneur. Considering the economic pearls which lie ahead, regardless of inflation rising, the Federal Reserve will not raise. This is what they feel there. The Trends Journal. They will not raise interest rates and will continue its bond buying scheme, and Washington will pump in more cheap money to artificially prop up failing equity markets and attempt to stop the economy from crashing. We analyzed the trends. We forecast that gold and silver will hit their bottom, or they hit their bottoms 2 weeks ago when they traded in the 17, 20, $23 per ounce range, respectively, and thus the prospects for precious metals to spike much higher are on the near horizon. Ford Ford is testing a new way of selling cars. In the past, automakers have cranked out cars with random colors, trim packages, and drivetrain options, then set them on dealers' lots where customers could choose among them. Now, Ford will emphasize making a car to each customer's custom order, placed online, and delivering it within 8 weeks. The new approach will slash Ford's and dealers' inventory costs and minimize the risk of making odd cars that no one wants and that dealers must discount to get rid of, the company said in announcing the shift. And that one's pretty interesting because automakers are having a rough time right now. I mean, there still is that chip shortage going on, shipping shortage going on. So it's getting to be tough times for automakers. Entrepreneurs, Americans filed papers to start 4.3 million businesses in 2020. The U.S. Census Bureau reported on 24% more than in 2019, and the most in a single year during the 15 years that the agency has tracked the statistic, according to the New York Times. The volume of applications is still rising this year, the New York Times noted, and the surge reverses a 40-year trend of the entrepreneurial sector's weakness. Now, in 1980, 12% of employers were new businesses, and by 2018, the most recent year for which figures are available, the number had shrunk to just 8%, a decline of one third. Now, because new businesses are key sources of innovation and job growth, the downtrend had worried economists. But 2020 economic shutdown forced many laid off workers to create their own jobs. We talked about gig economies before. And They create their own jobs. Others locked out of restaurants, gyms, theaters, and their other usual forms of entertainment use that time and pent up energy to launch their own ventures. But the boom may not last. Not every application for business license turns into a functioning business. The Census Bureau tracks applications for new businesses weekly, but will not be able to report on the number of actual businesses in operation for years. And basically, in the end, with the economy opening back up, a lot of these businesses may not stay open. Yellenpreneur. So from entrepreneurs, we move to Yellenpreneurs. Janet Yellen was nominated. When she was nominated to become Joe Biden's Treasury Secretary, she disclosed more than 7 million in spending fees and collected that she collected in 2019 and 2020, mostly from banks, hedge funds, and trading houses. However, she did not reveal the millions she took in for speeches she made in 2018 when she left the chair of the Federal Reserve. She didn't let us know. Deeply troubling two fisted money grab from banks by Janet Yellen. This is corruption, but it isn't called that because it's so customary. We've just sat down and accepted this. Now, Yellen might think she can make independent decisions once in office, but how arrogant is it to imagine that money corrupts everyone but you? Citing Eisinger's comment, the Wall Street Post posed a similar question. How arrogant is it for Yellen to think she can black out phone calls and meetings on her daily appointment calendar as the U.S. Treasury Secretary and not fall under suspicion? In her first 90 days in office, Yellen redacted. She redacted 73 meetings and phone calls, according to the Washington Post. Now, that is a bit troubling. And that is a look at our guests that we had this past week and Gerald Celente's Trends Journal. We're going to move over to our website real quick, silverbullion.com.sg. This is where you can come over and find the metals that we sell, learn about the vault and how we do things there. And right now, silver 24.29 is getting a good bump up today. There you go. Gold 18.21, getting some room now above that $1,800 ceiling, above that 1750 resistance. So both metals are doing good. Nickel back down a bit, 18,989 per ton. Nickel is used in electric vehicle batteries, probably one of the most key components in batteries, which is why a lot of people are looking at nickel right now. Investor Kit, it is free. Sign up for a storage account. Again, this is free. There are no maintenance fees as well. Gold silver ratio 75. What this means is if you are on the fence deciding should I buy gold or should I buy silver, this is a time to be buying silver. And there are times in history where you may want to flip between gold and silver depending on the ratio. So this is a good chart here that you may want to take a look at to see the points in history where you buy gold here, turn it to silver, flip that silver back into gold, and you can effectively double, at times, double your holdings just by playing the silver to gold ratio. Let me go back down. And then we have featured products, LBMA bars, 1,000 ounce, 100-ounce bars, gold. And let me just take a quick look here. LBMA bars, 249 bars in the vault, ready for you to own. You buy it, you own it. It is yours. This is not allocated or anything like that. This is the real deal, physical bars that you own. And 2 bars in the shop you can come down and pick up. If you are considering storing, you would have to sign up as a Silver Bullion user, an account, personal account, joint accounts, trust, joint with a minor, business accounts, and retirement accounts. Various different accounts. We can help you decide which account may be best for you, and it could be simple as a personal account where all you need is an ID, fill out that application, and you're good to go. We'll do our normal checks, and then you're good to go. If you do this, be sure to tick Silver Bullion TV, SBTV here on the bottom. So this will always help us out quite a bit. So again, just send us an email, silverbullion.com.sg, and we can walk you through it. It is free. There's no charge here for holding an account. A quick look at Twitter. Just a few things here. I was just going through it real quick. I mean, this is pretty interesting. Troops deployed to protect 535 members of Congress. Remember when we had that little demonstration of sorts? 26,000 troops needed to protect 535 members of Congress. Troops deployed to protect 15,000 citizens in Afghanistan. 5,000. 5,000. Okay, granted, this 5,000 they may be having, tanks and other things like that, but it kind of puts things a bit in perspective there. So I just found that interesting. War is a racket. That is true. Smedley Butler, back in 1935, Major General Smedley Butler. That was a pretty interesting statement he made back then. I don't know why well, I guess because of what's going on in Afghanistan, all of these things started popping up on my feeds. Dwight Eisenhower with what he said when he left office. That's one I'm going to look at later. Let's see. Tavi Costa, you would think that car inventories would be improving by now. Instead, the latest report for July just marked new lows. Okay, let me go back. Just marked new lows. And we can see car inventories, they were already they were already going down. I mean, the entire trend was down. But more recently, since 15 to 19, they had already gone down. And this was, I mean, this was the trend. Inventories were going down. And part of it, as we mentioned, is chip shortage. The chip shortage and inflation. Toyota is going to cut back global production by 40%. Okay, they're going to cut back by 40%. So we can see, it is tough for that auto industry right now. California stimulus checks are going out. Checks for the second round of the Golden State stimulus program for eligible Californians are now on the way. And this is interesting because pretty much all you needed to do to be eligible was to have just filed your taxes for 2020, and I believe have an income of less than 70,000, and that's it. You're going to get a stimulus check. It's helicopter money, gang. Helicopter money. Robert Kiyosaki. Biden's going to be replaced. It was always the plan. Then the horror show really begins. Buy gold, silver, Bitcoin while you still can, and take care. And then again, this is in line with what we always talk about here. There are things on the horizon, and we are going to need options. Gold is an option. In fact, it may be a necessity. Gold and silver and Bitcoin, three things that people are really moving into as they see what's really going on. Um, all right, so let's see what else is out here. It's no longer our job to wake up the sheep. It's time to wake up the other lions, and this is important. Couldn't have said it any better. It's time to really understand what we need to do. German executives grow increasingly concerned that a global supply squeeze and rising infections will damp the economic recovery. So Germany is getting a bit worried there with the bug still moving around. And what else is happening is renters in Berlin, sticking with Germany, plan to force a referendum on nationalizing thousands of apartments in the city in order to lower rents. The renter is going to tell the owner what he can and cannot do. Under the plan, landlords would be forced to sell their apartments to the city, which would then lower the rent. Activists have more than half the 240,000 signatures needed to force a referendum. It is the latest front in the battle for fairer rents after plans for a rent cap were overturned in the city. Overturned in the city. I think I can end it there. What do you guys think about that? The renter is going to tell you how much you can rent your flat out for, or worse yet, have your apartment or maybe even your home be nationalized. What do you guys think about that? So, okay, let me take a look at a few comments here. Let's see. Jonathan Holmes, there is no chip shortages. Manufacturers have higher inventories than ever. Okay, yeah, because the reports have always been that there are chip shortages. I mean, even let's say here in even in Singapore, when you want to pick up a computer, whatever it is, there are delays. Sometimes a week, 2 weeks before inventory comes in. So yeah, I'm curious where, if you don't mind, you could share that up with us. No chip shortages. That'd be good info for us to have. Appreciate that. Let's see. BK Travelog, government stealing everyone's property. Well, hey, all right. We need you to run for office there, BK, and you got my vote. Okay. But that's a good point. The government is reaching in people's pockets, and we said this before. When the government start to go broke, it's really start to get deep in a hole. They are going to reach into your pocket. They're going to reach into your pocket. So that's a great point there. Okay. So anyway, that was taking a look at Twitter. We'll head on over to the topic of the day. Okay, and that topic of the day is going to be Lebanon. Take heed. We are all on notice. We're all on notice, guys. And we're going to go through, as I mentioned before, a few things, a few clips as to what's going on in Lebanon. And we'll kind of see how the similarities with what we are seeing here. So, what's going on in Lebanon today can happen anywhere in the world. Can happen anywhere in the world. And again, want to take a look at the similarities and comparisons, in particular with the U.S., since it is the world's reserve currency. So, my good friends, let's take a seat in the SBTV bus. Buckle up, keep your head and arms in the window, and crank up that engine. Let's roll.
Lebanon's financial stability in the 1950s and 60s earned it the title of the Switzerland of the East, and its capital city, Beirut, was previously a magnet for so much tourism that it was known as the Paris of the Middle East. But this is Lebanon today, a victim of one of the worst financial collapses since the 1800s. Life is a daily struggle. Food, fuel, and medicine are unaffordable, and over half the country is below the poverty line.
اللي وجع لي قلبي اكثر شيء الناس الكبار اللي اكبر من العمر ضيق قاعدين عم بيوقفوا بالطرمبة بنزين، هذا اللي معه ضغط وهذا اللي معه السكري وهذا اللي بعد شوي حيقشط ما بعرف شو صاير معه وما حدا عم بيأمن لهم، قيمك من الدواء وقيمك من البنزين والخبار كثير عم بصير، ما حدا عم بيطلع فينا بعين الرأفة، لا بالعكس مرور الكرام.
After Lebanon's civil war ended in 1990, Lebanon rebuilt through tourism, foreign aid, and large donations from Gulf Arab states. Another major source of income for the country was in the form of remittances from the millions of Lebanese in the diaspora who sent money back home from across the world. But political instability across the Middle East and the Arab world in the past decade has had a major effect in decreasing these remittances, and consistent financial mismanagement by the ruling elite dragged the country deeper and deeper into debt. Sunni Gulf states also began to hold back on their funding as Iran appeared to exert greater influence across Lebanon via Hezbollah. By 2018, the government's failure to deliver political and economic reforms meant a huge amount of foreign aid and investment was being withheld from abroad. Finally, in 2019, mass protests erupted, driven by a generation of youth disenchanted by a political elite that had failed them time and time again.
Okay, so that's the beginning. Lebanon was known as the Switzerland of the East. If you can imagine that, the Switzerland of the East. Its capital, Beirut, was known as the Paris of the Middle East. And then civil war basically brought the country down. What is the definition of civil war? Now, we all think we know what the definition is, and we may be right. But civil war is also known as an interstate war, and it's a war between organized groups within the same state or country. Now, the aim of one side may be to take control of the country, or maybe just a region of that country to achieve independence of a region, or to change government policies. That last one is key, or to change government policies. So let me ask you, are you seeing discontent brewing between two sides in a nation, red and blue, red and blue, or the people wanting to change government policies? Are you seeing this? Are you seeing a discontent brewing between two sides in a nation, red and blue, or people wanting to change government policies, such as mandates, perhaps? Yeah, we're seeing it. And what we learned also is that remittance is a huge deal. Now, so much so is it is considered a major source of income. Now, in countries where, for whatever reasons, opportunities just are not there, citizens, they go abroad. They go abroad, they go overseas to work and send money home or remit. They remit money back home. And some of what they earn, they of course they remit it back home to support their families back home. For their families, this is considered income. A lot of times this is considered their lifeline. So what happens is many times the best and the brightest have to leave a country, try to find work abroad, and then send money back home because of it could be a civil war, corruption, whatever it may be. And in Lebanon's case, this is what many people they've been doing for quite a while, but more so now than ever. Huge it is a huge way to support families back home. And where it gets interesting also is consistent financial mismanagement by ruling elites. Consistent financial mismanagement by the ruling elites. We have that. Dragged the country deeper and deeper into debt. We have that. Can we say the U.S., as have many countries in Europe and even Asia, have allowed ruling elites, or what we might call politicians, perhaps oligarchs, to drag countries deeper and deeper into, into debt? Mass protests erupted, driven by a generation of youth, the youth disenchanted, disenfranchised by a political elite that had failed them time and time again. So, do we see sparks of this that one day will set a fire in people? Civil rest comes before civil war. We saw what's happening in Australia. We saw what's happening in the UK. We saw what's happening in France, in Germany. We're seeing what's happening even in New York is starting to rise. We are seeing it all over the world. And again, if you have your needle here, are things getting closer to peace, or are things getting closer to chaos? Peace or chaos? And that's the thing. That is another reason why you want to have that option and consider things like gold and silver, that store of wealth, because you just don't know what is going to happen with a country's currency. So let me go and play another clip from Lebanon.
Then came the fateful 2020 explosion at the port of Beirut, followed by the pandemic. For a country already on track for a financial disaster, the explosion in Beirut and COVID-19 were the final nails in the coffin. Lebanon's economic collapse has been ranked amongst the world's worst since the 1800s by the World Bank. Since 2019, the Lebanese pound has lost more than 90% of its value.
أنا كنت صغير فجأة وعيت على الدنيا ولقيت كل شيء فقر وغلا ودولار. يعني إذا بدك تروح على مدينة المالية ما فيك، إذا بدك تروح على البحر ما فيك. بتدلك بالشغل من الصباح للعشية، بتخلص شغل وبتروح بتنام.
Lebanon's minimum wage has not changed, but hyperinflation as a result of the Lebanese pound crashing has pushed food prices up by 400%.
معي باكل ما معي ما باكل، ومفتحي بالرودي إذا بتلاقي فيه وقية جبنة أو وقية لبنة أو وقية لحمة أو فروج دجاج أو فخذ دجاج أو فيه.
Drugs and medicines subsidized by the government are running out. There are massive electricity shortages, and even those relying on private generators don't have enough fuel to run them. There are massive queues for fuel, and many are surviving on a few hours of electricity a day.
We talk about hundreds of thousands of businesses and jobs that have been lost. We talk mainly about small and medium businesses run by private entrepreneurs, and we talk about a lot of middle class that has been affected quite badly from the situation.
Okay, food prices 400%. Can you imagine that? Lebanon's economic collapse ranked among the world's worst since the 1800s. They had to go all the way back to the 1800s to find something relative to what's going on in Lebanon. Since 2019, the Lebanese pound has lost more than 90% of its value. Since 1913, the US dollar has lost over 90% of its value. And what it kind of tells me is that what's happening in Lebanon is happening at breakneck speed. What's happening in the US and everywhere else regarding currency losing value, that's happening a little bit more in slow motion, but nonetheless, it is still happening. So you have two things very, very, very similar. But going back to the 1800s to find something similar, that's incredible. The world is still going to have goods, but it may not want that U.S. dollar. where the U.S. dollar isn't any good anymore, and the future, the young people, and we've often heard the word the fourth turning. The young people are disenfranchised, unhappy, ripe for revolt, ripe for revolt, which takes us back to civil unrest before civil war. And we said before where change comes by evolution, meaning peacefully, or revolution, meaning not so peacefully. And Lebanon is kind of in the middle right now. It's things are still civil, but people are really getting tired of it. And looking at some of these similarities already early on between what is the root cause of what's happening there, government mismanaging, the finances and things like that. It is so real with what's going on in the West and in the US. So again, the root causes of these things are already there and already happening. Let's take another look, another clip at what's going on there.
A recent report from the World Bank estimates that the Lebanese economy will shrink by a massive 10% this year, with the country's GDP dropping exponentially. The report also states that a catastrophic economic collapse such as this usually happens as a result of war, and the crisis has wider-ranging effects.
The crisis affects everyone in Lebanon, not just the Lebanese. As you know, Lebanon hosts the highest number of refugees per capita of residents in the world, with over 1 million Syrian refugees and more than 270,000 Palestinian refugees.
Shortly after the anniversary of the Port of Beirut blast, US President Joe Biden announced a pledge of $100 million in aid for Lebanon.
Today I'm announcing nearly $100 million in new humanitarian assistance. That's on top of the $560 million in humanitarian aid that the United States has provided to Lebanon over the last 2 years. And I urge my fellow leaders in capitals around the world to also step up their support for the Lebanese people.
But as with all foreign aid, it comes with a strict warning for Lebanon's political elite.
No amount of outside assistance will ever be enough if Lebanon's own leaders do not commit to do the hard but necessary work of reforming the economy and combating corruption. It's essential.
Yeah, that one kind of left me speechless there. Getting rid of corruption is essential. Getting rid of corruption is essential. Comments? Comments? Let me go ahead and take a look at a few of these comments. Yes, Peter Schultz, you are welcome. You can come down to Singapore. You can move in with Vincent and I. I think Vincent's moving anyway, so you can help him out there and earn your keep. Grab a bedroom while it's still open. Okay, let's see. Manuel De Jesus, voting does not matter. Yeah, I think a lot of people around the world, they are kind of starting to wonder. I mean, being that it's not necessarily because of whether you believe or don't believe in the rigging that went on. I think it's more where politicians just are not in touch with what the people that voted for them want. They're just no longer in touch. So we need to get new people, basically need to get new people in there, hopefully, and hopefully to make a change. Who knows? I could even be wrong there. Let's see what else is out there. Hidden Numismatist, how you doing? Let's see. Jonathan Holmes, again, foreign aid goes from poor people in rich countries to rich people in poor countries. I agree with that to a point, because I do see what happens a lot of times, especially in third world countries anyway, where, that aid comes in and then the people at the top, they keep it or they don't distribute it the way it was meant to be distributed. So, I can see that. I have seen that happen as well. So I'd agree with that to an extent. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so let's go to another clip from Lebanon.
But why is Lebanon's currency in free fall? And where did all the dollars go?
After the end of the civil war in the 1990s, Lebanon's economic development was based on the financial sector. So what we saw is the over-financialization of the Lebanese economy. To give you an example, the budget of the Ministry of Agriculture is 1% of the total annual budget in Lebanon.
Although the fertile Bekaa Valley offers the potential for a strong agriculture sector, Lebanon imports most of its food, and almost everything else as well. Instead of production and trade, the country has relied on funds from abroad for decades. In the 1990s, then Prime Minister Rafiq Hariri began taking on loans in dollars, money that would become public debt.
There's no real economy. And so when we say Ponzi scheme, is that the whole economy was basically fueling consumption through the deposits of either Lebanese diaspora or money coming from Europe, from the Gulf, that could invest in Lebanon for high returns on investment. But this high return was based literally on a bubble, which was the public debt. And so, of course, now it came to an end. It's like the credit card is finished.
And that price is Lebanon's current public debt of at least $90 billion. Compounding the problem was the vast sums of money disappearing to corruption. And the banks were in on the scheme.
By saying that the banks are bankrupt or insolvent, the law has to kick in, which means that the central bank has to buy the banks and restructure the whole banking sector and recapitalize it through an IMF loan. Instead, what's happening is literally another Ponzi scheme, a reverse Ponzi scheme, whereby the depositors lose their money if they would like to take it out of the bank.
New banking policies mean dollars deposited before 2019 can only be withdrawn under severe restrictions or as Lebanese pounds, so people's savings are effectively lost. But this wasn't the case for all Lebanese. In late 2019, $3 to $4 billion was sent abroad. The wealthy managed to get their money out of the banks before the restrictions set in, saving themselves from the same fate of the low and middle income earners.
Okay, so trying to get dollars is a tough thing in Lebanon right now, and they do have the official established exchange rate, and then they also have the black market exchange rate. So what the numbers that you may see or hear may not be the true numbers that are on the ground as far as exchange rates go. And my understanding also is that you're limited to how much dollars you can pull out, and they would prefer you, or basically you're going to get more of the Lebanese pound than you will dollars. And what happened was the governments and the banks, they were offering such high interest rates that it attracted in dollars. It attracted dollars in as investments because of the higher rates. People felt, hey, we're getting good yield here. Let's go and invest, send those dollars in. And what happened is it just never materialized. And governments, banks, they did their own. They kind of did their own thing there. So let me just get to it here. So economic development was based on the financial sector. Okay, it wasn't based on producing material things and products. Now, over financialization of the economy, it imports most everything. Okay, again, because you're not creating, and to have a consumption economy where you're not producing anything, that is going to drag you in debt. That is definitely going to drag you down. Growth of public debt. We see this as well. In the U.S., we're already seeing that public unfunded liabilities. Again, in the U.S. and in the West, so much of things are imported from Asia. Looking at the Fed, central banks, they are just recapitalizing the banks, the markets, holding them up. So we're seeing all of these things on this list here. There was no real economy. All it did was fuel consumption. Again, this is exactly what we are seeing today. Public debt was in a bubble. Again, unfunded liabilities, Social Security. I think Social Security is the one of the biggest public unfunded liabilities out there. Corruption consumed money. Corruption consumed money, and the banks were in on it. Central bank had to recapitalize the other banks, and depositors lost their money held in banks. That again, they make it more difficult for you to get U.S. dollars. Instead, you have to use that hyperinflating Lebanese pound, which is losing value. They'll give you that, but they want to hang on to the dollars for, let's just say, for themselves, so to speak. Withdrawals are only in the case of emergencies. Again, this is for U.S. dollars. Again, Lebanese pounds, not for Lebanese pounds is what they want you to go ahead and use, not the U.S. dollars. It only can be withdrawn in emergencies. Well, savings were effectively lost by the middle class. Middle class lost their savings. Again, this is what we were seeing. The wealthy were able to move their money. Um, it kind of takes me back to 2008 when we had that the great financial crisis 2008. I remember it was Paulson or one of those guys came on the television and said we were, I believe it was 2 days away from a complete global meltdown. 2 days away. Yet they didn't tell you, they didn't tell me. Fact is they're not going to tell any one of us if it's getting to that point. So 2 days away, 2 days out, they didn't tell any of us. And more than likely it'll be this way again. We're not really going to get any warning except for the warning we are seeing now loud and clear. Okay, we are seeing it loud and clear. This is your warning right now with what's going on with the Fed and central banks, because when it's 2 days away, they aren't going to tell you anything. It's just you've had 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. We've had all this time to understand what's going on and to do something about it. So here's another clip from Lebanon.
The blast was caused by around 2,750 tonnes of ammonium nitrate, a compound used in agriculture and mining that had been sitting idle for 6 years. It was the largest non-nuclear explosion in human history. It's still not clear why the shipment was stored at the port for so long, or at whose request, or why no order was issued to evacuate members of the public from the port and surrounding neighbourhoods when the fire broke out. But what is clear is that from the customs officer to the director of the port, from politicians to senior ministers, and all the way up to the presidency, they knew it was there and did nothing to remove it. A year has passed, but the investigation into the cause of the explosion has made little progress. After 6 months, the first judge appointed to lead the inquiry was removed after he summoned ministers to testify. His replacement is facing resistance from politicians who say they're protected by immunity laws.
In Lebanon, you cannot prosecute any public servant if the superior does not give the approval for that.
For any crime?
For any crime related to the service, of course. The same for deputies and ministers. The parliament should approve the prosecution of deputies during the sessions. And the session now is permanent because we don't have a government.
Politicians also use sectarian divides within society to accuse the judiciary of being biased.
Always in Lebanon, every time you prosecute any influent person, they come with the same discourse: you are targeting us. And suddenly the accused person became a victim.
The lack of accountability in the Beirut port explosion is far from an exception. The judiciary reflects the political system, which is rife with corruption and cronyism. In Lebanon, senior prosecutors and members of the higher judicial council are chosen by politicians. Those with the right connections escape justice, while those who don't have friends in high places are powerless. It's created a system that's unable to enforce safety checks and balances, and has allowed for what is described by analysts as state-sponsored mafias.
State-sponsored mafias. What a word. But tree climber, you got it right. Everyone knew and did nothing. And again, this is where we are today. We all know what's going on. We need to do something. And that something can be as simple as understanding what's going on, sharing with your friends, getting things like silver and gold, getting that type of wealth protection, self-protection, whatever it is. But the thing is, we all know it's there. We all know it's there. So what are we doing? What are we doing about it? The courts systems, they have broken down. We have that, more or less. We're seeing it. Politicians, deputies, ministers are protected by immunity laws. When's the last time we saw a politician really go under fire, under trial for what's going on? Far and few between, right? Government cannot be held accountable by the people only by each other. And that kind of seems true as well today. I mean, government, they're not accountable to us anymore, but to their constituents, they do seem to be accountable in some ways, but perhaps it's because, they are in it together and looking out for their best interests and maybe their colleagues' best interests, but I'm not so sure if they're looking out for yours and my best interest. The judiciary full of cronyism and corruption. Judiciary chosen by politicians. We see this as well. Judiciary is a state-sponsored mafia. That was what a statement there. Judiciary is state-sponsored mafia. When you get the courts to do your bidding, they say the last sign of a before a country falls, the last thing you're going to notice is the judiciary falling apart. So again, keep an eye on that as well. Another clip from Lebanon.
The Taif Agreement that ended Lebanon's civil war in 1990 built on the power sharing system for the country's 18 sects, created post-French occupation. The plan aimed to keep the peace after 15 years of war. The sects maintained the same roles as before. The president is Christian, the prime minister Sunni, and the Speaker of the House is Shia. But under the Taif Agreement, the prime minister's powers were increased, and there are quotas for the number of seats in parliament held by each sect. But the sectarian nature of the system has led to dysfunctionality.
In fact, the system is a clientelist one. The current system cannot lead to any other result. You have sectarian brokers who claim to represent their own sect and whose interest is to maximize short-term benefits and short-term rents and resources from the state to keep apart for them, of course, and their parties, and to distribute a bit to their sect.
So rather than acting in the interests of the state as a whole, political leaders prioritise people of their own sect and constituency. Often, this means overlooking long-term developments. More than 3 decades after the end of the Civil War, Lebanon still doesn't have a reliable power supply. Outages last up to 20 hours a day. Lebanon's rolling blackouts are substituted with what's known as the generator mafia. Operators who often have ties to the politicians in their neighbourhood and so have a vested interest in supporting them. Meanwhile, the national grid is woefully inadequate to power Lebanon's 1.3 million homes and in desperate need of an overhaul, despite costing the government a total of $40 billion in debt over the past 30 years. Some of the funds allocated to upgrading the national grid have been spent on short-term solutions, such as multiple floating power plants. But some of the money is unaccounted for. The President's Party, the Free Patriotic Movement, or FPM, has controlled the Ministry of Energy and Water for more than a decade. Plans were reportedly drawn up to completely overhaul the electricity sector, but they have never materialised.
Okay, so the judicial system is the state-sponsored mafia, is what they call it, and then we have the power mafia or generator mafia. I mean, it goes to show the state of people's minds there already, where there's just absolute no trust in government or anyone in power. And a lot of places in the world, they are getting to that point as well. But the power sharing system, money is power. It's hard to have any power if you don't have money, unless you were born into it, perhaps. But money is power and shared with candidates by special interest groups, corporations. We see this, right? We absolutely see this. And this is the power sharing system. Now, in Lebanon, it may be through religions or things like that, similar. In the States, it's red and blue. Red and blue are bought out by green. These are the sects, a red sect and a blue sect, but both are bought out by green. Now, don't ever forget this and don't ever think otherwise. Instead of prioritizing you and me, political leaders prioritize special interest, short term gains, personal gains over the populace and long term development. I mean, you want proof? Look at the highways, railways, bridges. Are they the image of a wealthy country? Are they the image of a wealthy country? or the result from decades of neglect, from decades of the same politicians, whether they be red or whether they be blue. It's the same. Oligarchs, elites, politicians have their own interests, and you and I are not it. And this is what history shows. This is what history repeats over and over and over. It's nothing new under the sun. We see this over and over. So again, you know, it's their game. It's their world that they are playing. So we need to do what they are doing, not necessarily do what they say. And what I mean by that is when you look at banks holding gold reserves and things like that. And as one of you said, you need to be your own central bank because the last thing you want, I mean, remember, gold is the money of kings, silver, the money of gentlemen, debt, the money of slaves. So the last thing we want is to have that debt. We need to do what they are doing or have the things that they consider to be money as well. We need to get on that level in order to level that playing field. We got to understand what's going on. Another clip from Lebanon.
The power sharing system means that opposing parties can, and do, block each other's policies. It also means that forming a unity government is notoriously hard, and it takes months to find a lineup that suits everyone. In the wake of the port disaster in August 2020, the government resigned. And for a year, during arguably the worst period of Lebanon's history, the country has limped on without a government.
Unfortunately, the decision makers couldn't understand that the priority now is economical and it's financial, and it's not time for the political quarrels and disputes, etc. And unfortunately, they failed to understand that this should be an extreme priority.
So who's to blame?
Everyone is to blame. The financial sector, Riyad Salemi, and the bankers of the town who didn't see it coming, who denied it till the last day and kept on sucking people's savings to put them in a non-productive system. The politicians who did nothing to prevent corruption and who fueled a system that is based on clientelism to safeguard their own power, and Hezbollah and the Iranian influence and this whole axis in the region who aggravated the case of Lebanon by cutting the ties with Europe and trying to cut with the Western world and the Arab world and taking us towards a resistance economy that cannot work in Lebanon.
Okay. Opposing parties block each other's policies. We see that perhaps stronger, more so than ever. Bipartisanship, they call it. The government resigned, no effective government in Lebanon. I'll refer to the U.S. again. Government may not have resigned, but it is quickly becoming ineffective. And again, why is this important? Because the world's reserve currency is tied into that government. Okay, that's why it's important. The banks knew what was going on and continued to suck people's money, wealth transfer. And again, it's kind of what we're seeing right now. And I'll refer back to when you take a look at things like how the Fed kept all these companies afloat during those tough times last year. Kept these companies afloat, and now these companies are turning around and buying residential properties, outbidding mom and dad, and buying up homes that you and me are now going to have to pay rent to them to live in. So it is a form of a wealth transfer. So all these things that are happening in Lebanon, or at least the root cause of why these things happened, are exactly the same things that are happening today. Keep that in mind. Another clip from Lebanon. 2 more clips to go.
You cannot build a sustainable economy, a solid economy, while having a militia that is infeuded to Iran, that is running or mastering or having the upper hand on very important decisions like the Act of War and Peace and the whole foreign relation, and who to insult outside the country and who to make peace with. So, of course, Hezbollah is very detrimental to also the business climate in Lebanon. Who wants to invest in a country where you have Hezbollah running the port?
Arguably, though, a nation-state should have a legal framework, functioning judiciary and democratic structure that does not permit such high levels of outside interference.
Foreign interventions and foreign interests have always caused us big problems in Lebanon. But that's what foreign players do. They just try to engage in politics to serve their own interests, definitely.
The system was set to fail.
The real blame is the confessional system as a whole. They all were part of the decision-making process in Lebanon. No one was outside of government during the at least 15 years. So the debt, the role of the Lebanese debt, the state-owned debt I'm talking about, was to just spend on all of these confessions to remain in this power-sharing government.
Okay, so you cannot have an effective government for the people or a true market economy when the militia runs or influences one or both. And the word militia, think money, special interest, oligarchs. I mean, just substitute that word and things start to make sense a bit. But ultimately, who wants to invest in a country like that? Investing can be buying that country's debt and bonds. And again, U.S. is heavily dependent on people buying their bonds. So you're going to come to a point who may really want to invest in that. And I've seen an interesting comment out there. I haven't forgotten this. Okay, we were just talking about this the other week in the office. Now, I mean, I'm trying to remember the sequence of events. I think this was around 2015 or somewhere like that. And what had happened was, I believe China had devalued their currency a bit. And next thing you know, a warehouse blows up in Tianjin. And I think, again, I'm trying to remember the sequence of events. And I think they lowered it again. And I think another warehouse blew up. Again, if you guys are more familiar with that story, chime in on it. But, it's things, they do seem to blow up at times mysteriously. So, yeah. I mean, I do remember that as well. So where were we here? Yeah, you can't have an effective government this way. And again, when your government is starting to show signs of cracks, and cracks being it's populace. When it's populace is starting to basically get fed up, uh, government is going to try to crack down more and more and have more and more power. And what that does is, you know, bond buyers, bond holders, they start to see that, hey, this country's getting kind of shaky. I don't know if I want to hang on to their dollar. I don't know if I want to invest in them. So it all plays a part. It all plays a part. Anyway, this is the final clip here.
There are fears that the dramatic increase in poverty is pushing voters back towards the sectarian parties that have offered them safety nets for years, at the cost of nationwide development. Fed up with a system that was failing its people, in October 2019, protests erupted across Lebanon. The final straw was the threat of a WhatsApp tax, but the economic crisis was already weighing heavily on the country, with rising unemployment and flailing public services. And when it was apparent the dollars were gone, the cries became louder for all the political leaders to step down. It was the first time in Lebanon's history that there were united protests beyond sectarian divisions, calling for a systemic change. But why did the demonstrations fizzle out?
الأسباب خلت الناس تطلع من الشارع أولا العنف المفرط اللي كان عم تمارسه السلطة تجاه الشعب، ثانيا الكوفيد 19 وانتشاره بلبنان، ثالثا هو عدم اقتناع الناس بالتغيير من حيث الشارع. عملية التغيير هي بدها شوية وقت بلبنان وحتستمر لانتخابات نيابية تنكون قدرنا نعمل تغيير وفرق.
Khaldoun Jabba was part of those protests in 2019. He was arrested and beaten by security forces. Now he works at an online media outlet that was born during what the Lebanese refer to as the revolution. There are few independent mainstream media organisations. Most TV channels and newspapers are associated with political parties. Over the past few years, non-sectarian online platforms have been born, and non-sectarian parties have been mobilising, hoping that at the next election people will vote beyond the parties they have chosen for decades. But even lawmakers agree, as it is, the current political system doesn't represent true democracy. So until the system is changed, it's unlikely Lebanon will see the change it needs.
Okay, so poverty is pushing people to safety nets offered by their sects or their parties. Socialism, perhaps, MMT, helicopter money. A WhatsApp tax. A WhatsApp tax broke. Governments will reach into your pockets and create new taxes to try and get money any way they can, everywhere they can. WhatsApp tax, can you imagine that? Twitter tax, maybe Facebook tax. Well, there were united protests, but it fizzled out. The media outlets are affiliated and linked to political parties, and people are relying on elections for change. I mean, again, we are clearly seeing each and every one of these things going on today. Unless the system changes, Lebanon will not see the changes it needs. Can we also say, unless things change in the US or perhaps even your own country where you are and change for what the people want, we are all on that clock. We're all on the clock. And as they say, you have the power to change your future. If you don't use your power to change and direct your future, someone else, someone else will do it for you. Someone else will do it for you. All right, and that'll end the topic of the day. You know, one thing about also Lebanon, it wasn't here, is that they have their own currencies, the Lebanese pound, and in a sense, it is backed by the U.S. dollar. They have another currency that they can fall back on, and which is why it's a bit tough right now because now they can't really get access to those U.S. dollars, and it's only their own home currency, that Lebanese pound, that is inflating, hyperinflating. So they're having a rough go of it because their currency is not backed by anything now. So let's take a look at the US, for instance. What backs the US dollar? Some might say the petrodollar, some might say the military government, whatever it may be. But some will also say nothing. Nothing backs the US dollar. So if, let's say, these set of circumstances happens, let's say in a country like the US, and again, these things are already here. The root causes are already in the US. Now what happens with the US dollar? There's nothing to back it. There's nothing behind it. So for a country like the US, what do? Now, other countries, they may look to go to another currency, whether it's again U.S. dollar, maybe it's the pound or whatever currency. They have an option. They try to get into another currency, but you look at the U.S. What other currency does the U.S. have that they could actively or immediately roll over into? It's nothing. There is nothing. Nothing. Um, some might say Bitcoin. There's not enough adoption. There's not enough adoption for cryptocurrencies. The best you can do, perhaps, is why I say find a store of value for that currency. Should it roll over, it is these assets like gold and silver that is going to store the wealth. And I've heard Michael Pinto, who is coming up in our interview, he said things like the dollar will not collapse against other fiat currencies, but it will have a hard time against other assets, meaning the dollar will fall against other assets, but maybe not, or perhaps not against other currencies. So something to keep in mind. And again, it's all about options. We are going to need options. So let me take a look at a few comments here. The similarities, I mean, the root causes of what happened in Lebanon, it's absolutely already here in many other places throughout the rest of the world. Yeah, I see these comments, graphene, and all these other things. No worries. I, yeah, I have a, I have a understanding of it. But let's see. Comments. Let's see comments here. Comments. Okay. Netflix tax in Canada. Okay. Um, yeah, I can see what's on your mind. I really see what's on your mind and can appreciate that. Um, Okay, well, okay, let's just move over to our comments section here. So, what does it take for change? You takes you. It takes you to have an understanding of what's going on. It takes you to even have a solution of what's going on. I mean, you know, my belief is, if you want to complain, which is fine, try to have a solution. Try to have a solution for it as well, and that can make things a whole lot better. Is if we complain, let's also have a solution. If you want change, do something, support something, uh, give us a thumbs up. That'd be cool too. But Lebanon showed us how there was a wealth transfer, inflation, not being able to access your money, banks having knowledge of what's going on but not being honest to help people. not being honest to warn people ahead of time. And when I say people, I mean the average Joes, the middle class, the lower class. I mean the majority of the people. Now, should we take heed, or should we say these things they can never happen to me? So I shouldn't worry about it. I don't need to worry about it. It's your choice. Self protection, health protection, wealth protection. Understand what these things are, how they are needed, and understand that they are needed here and now today. Again, this isn't financial advice, professional or otherwise. These are just things that I do, my opinion, and a lot of people I know that do the same things, and we are here to help. So go ahead and contact us if you need to. Sales at silverbullion.com.sg. We can talk about maybe what your situation is, what you're looking for, see if we have a solution for it, and we'll work with you, and we'll work with you to see what we can do for you. So that will end the commentary section, and let me just take a look at a few more comments before we head out. Let's see here. The US dollar collapse is unthinkable only because we have not witnessed the major currency go bust. Despite being printed to such insane levels, economics warrant a collapse at this stage. Vincent, all right. Warrant a collapse at this stage. It is yeah. I mean, like I said, we know what's going on, and how they said in that clip, everybody knew it but didn't do anything. Well, we all know what's going on with the Fed, with the currency printing, with all these things, and how they're talking about central bank digital currencies coming up. We all know these things already. We all know that this monetary system is going to shift into a new monetary system. So within that transition, we need to have things that are going to store our wealth during that transition. It's not hard to do. Like I say, one option, give us a call, send us an email. That's one option. We can work with you through it. Talk to people. You know, that image where it's time for lions to talk to other lions, or whatever it may be. Um, time. We don't have time. What I mean is, we can't turn back time when things start to happen. That's it. So we need to do the things we need to do now. Okay, we need to do it now. In Lebanon's case, I mean, perhaps they knew the government was corrupt for so long, but maybe they didn't foresee how banks weren't going to let them withdraw their money. Maybe they didn't foresee how banks wouldn't let them get to US dollars. Or, in other words, you don't know what is going to happen, which is why you have to prepare, prepare for the things that you think may happen. Okay, let me take a look at a few comments and then we'll head out here. You guys got to go to work tomorrow, right? Everybody's fully employed again, back to work. That's what they say. Okay, so let's see. Um, Manuel de Jesus, that's a good point. Seeds for food will be worth their weight in gold. That's a good point as well. I mean, seeds. We people rarely talk about them, but there are seeds that actually will not produce new seeds, and those are the seeds you need to be aware of. I mean, I think you have your organic, which are the good types, heirloom. You have your GMO seeds. You have your hybrid seeds. So seeds, that's a good point. Go ahead and take a look at seeds. But gold and silver, gold and silver also. Okay, so let me see. What else is out here? Uh, okay, yeah, Carrie Eldon Wilder. That sums it up. Return to a Constitution dollar, 371 grains of silver, 371 grains of silver, and 900 fine coins back then were 90% silver. And that's a good point. We often say when you look at 6 quarters, the weight of 6 quarters is a little over 1 ounce. Okay, 31.1 grams. In those 6 quarters, you have 90% silver. And if you were to take that ounce, you're looking at what, $24 an ounce right now, USD. 6 quarters, which is $1.50. $1.50 is about 24, 23, I guess, if you do that 90% thing. And we're clamoring for a $15 minimum wage. Well, if you had kept the silver in the money, if you didn't take that silver out, if you kept it there, it would have fought off inflation. People would be they would be having a higher wage today with real money as opposed to, let's just say, paper money, fake money, whatever you want to call it. So that's a great point there. And with that, I will be headed out. Let you guys get some sleep. I appreciate you guys joining me again. Haven't seen you in a while. Haven't seen you at all. Just your words. But we'll do this again in a couple weeks unless things otherwise change. We'll let you know. And just remember to be a blessing, not a burden. We are all in this together. Let's help each other out as best we can. And as always, remember to saddle up for what's coming ahead and silver up as well. I'll see you guys next week. Take care, everyone.